bicycle, Sir John. I'm never going to forget.
That's so long.
I know, man. This last 6 months have not been the best for me for Piney Comics, and I wanted to throw that out real quick. Piney Comics, WESUFM.org, 88.1 on your FM dial. Thanks so much to all the people that have been able to cover with John, Eric Bearcat, Mitch Halleck, Nick Banks, and anybody I'm missing. Ogstone. Anybody I'm missing. I am Johnny Ganache. I have not been able to be here too much, but I always figure out how to get here for the really good shows.
Yeah.
And I'm here tonight, and we got a really good show, John.
We do, and to slap this one together at last minute, very last minute. I was very very pleased that we got him to at least willingly come on.
Yeah, we didn't have to blackmail him or anything.
No, none of that. Our very special guest tonight is the wonderful John Ostrander, writer extraordinaire, such a talented writer, and such a litany list of titles that he's worked on. John, how you doing tonight?
I'm all right, thanks.
Hey, great! It's great to have you on. I haven't actually seen you in probably about a decade. I posted a picture up of the two of us at New York Comic Con.
You looked very young in that picture. You had no gray in your beard, and yeah.
I may have had hair on my head.
Yes, you did.
You did.
I think you were still working on the Star Wars titles at that point.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a decade on it, so even 10 years ago would be probably somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah. That was quite a stretch for you for a lengthy period of writing Star Wars.
Well, I tend to do that. I get a book. If I'm happy with it, I just write it right into the ground.
I think it's a good ground though, because let's see. I discovered you. I want to say Suicide Squad, but I knew of you prior to that. I knew Grimjack. What else did you work on back then?
Well, Grimjack takes me back pretty early to my career. I mean, at the time, I had done my first work in comics were a couple of backup features in First Comics Warp, and then I was asked to come on to Star Slayer. And with the second issue of my run on Star Slayer is where Grimjack premiered. So we're talking about, within the first half dozen of my comics is when I started working on Grimjack. What was interesting at the time was that first, liked the character and the concept a lot, but from the proposal, but they weren't sure whether or not it would go with the fans, because they said, well, it's pretty dark. He's an anti-hero. Yeah. He's very grim, very gritty, and this is before grim and gritty became a big thing. So they said, look, what we'll do is we'll put him into the back of Star Slayer for, let's say a year or two, and if he catches on, then we'll spin him out into his own book. Well, within 8 months of that first appearance in the back of Star Slayer, he was in his own book, because fan reaction was instant and rather loud.
Yeah, I remember that. I wasn't reading it back then. I think most of the independent companies were just outside of my reach for an income. I mean, you're looking at DC and Marvel at the time were mostly 65, 75 cents, and then you get to the indies, which were what were they, $1.25 for?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So it was just...
You had to mow an extra lawn.
I did. I think my first job was a Woolworths, so...
You had to pour an extra egg cream.
Well, going back to my early days when I was reading comics, I mean, to me, I was horrified when they went from a dime to 12 cents.
Yeah, that was what, 69, 68, 69?
Oh, it was a long time ago. It was when I was when I'm a mere lad, so... That would be somewhere late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I go back that far. Yeah.
So as someone that's never, me personally, have never read Grimjack, if you were to say, now maybe it'll be the first set or the origin or the first series, what is there a particular story you would say to me, this is the one as the creator that I think you'll probably enjoy or dig the most, not knowing my taste per se, but saying I want to learn about Grimjack, I want to read Grimjack. How would I get into that?
Well, finding the early backup features would be, I think, like a real good place to start, because that way you would encounter John Gaunt, Grimjack, the same way the readers did in general. And we started off with a two-parter, and then pretty quick we went into a multi-parter called Buried Past, which really helped define the character. I think that went on for about 5 chapters, and then shortly after that, he was in his own book.
That's a pretty quick turnaround for that time period too.
But Buried Past really helps define the early adventures of Grimjack and who he was and where he came from. Tim and I had a lot of the background of the character clear in our heads, but we both agreed we were only going to tell it as a given story demanded that we give out a bit of it more, and that way, the readers would go. They all seemed to understand that there was more story than we were telling, but we weren't telling it yet.
Right.
It was a good build. It definitely was that. I remember, as far as the fan reaction, particularly, I mean, you're looking at a lot of the independent titles at the time were really starting to take off. Partly, no, this is prior to you getting in, I know, John, but partly, wow, there's so many Johns.
the three John hour.
It was really the heyday of the direct market and the comic shops, solo comic shops, taking off and pushing these books out there, and the market was so different and so magical for
well, the whole thing about the direct sale market is you could only get the independents at the comic book stores. That was part of the attraction for the comic book stores, for the independents, was that, hi, we have product that only we will have.
Right.
You can't get them at a newsstand or even at a bookstore.
And it was a big deal. I mean, they were high quality comics, taking strides. They didn't have, a lot of them didn't have the Comics Code Authority because they didn't need to. So it was some pretty wild stuff.
For $1.25, I better get quality.
Yeah, well, that's too. Yeah, but
the paper was better quality. I think there was better printing overall, coloring. And eventually DC and Marvel caught on and started to hire away as much of the talent as they could. I remember at one point too, DC, for instance, was doing what they called hardback, softback. For instance, with the Legion of Superheroes, there was at one point when they decided to do it, they made the current issue of Legion of Superheroes available only in the comic book stores,
right,
in the better format, and then a year later, those same issues would show up on the stands in a standard format for that.
They did that with New Teen Titans.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's when they started doing the reprints. So like, there was a New Teen Titan regular printing quality book, and they eventually turned that into the Tales of the Teen Titans, which was a reprint of the upscale version.
Oh, you know what's funny about that is that I'm not a huge Teen Titans fan, but I had a small amount of that in my collection from when I was younger. I'd bought maybe a pile of it at some store. And I had one of those hardback ones of Teen Titans, and I just never really understood, what was the difference in this thing.
Fancier paper.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was supposed to be a annual or something like that. Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. It was a good time, though. It was a good time. So, speaking of Grimjack, I mean, since the wonderful Pint of Comics listeners out there are probably itching to discover, so Grimjack has been picked up for a streaming series.
It's being developed, and I'm full of hope for it. It's being developed now. It's the Russo brothers of Avengers Endgame fame and other really lucrative movies are involved with it. So I mean they pretty much have the clout to get it made, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right now, Amazon Prime is looking at it.
Wow.
And some of the things that are working for it, I think, aside from the fact, well, for instance, I forget, one of the Russo brothers said that growing up on his nightstand, he had two series sitting on his nightstand, and one was Captain America at the time, and the other one was Grimjack. So, well, okay, that means he liked it pretty much. So, so that's a very positive and very hopeful thing. I say, knocking wood, knocking my head, and crossing my fingers, toes, and eyes.
It's a series that, I mean, the comic series would really be interesting on a service like that. There's just so many things they could do with it.
Yeah. It has a lot of visual possibilities, and these days they have the CGI and all the other technology in order to do it on a television series. I mean, we're talking about the special effects on series, especially streaming series, is just about equal to what you can see on the movie screen.
We are literally in a time right now that there is a live-action Star Wars show.
Yeah.
Which, in my, I've heard about it for a million years, and you give up after a while, and it's happening now. So I mean, these streaming services, the money they're putting into these things, there's definitely, especially with someone like the Russo brothers behind it. Mm-hmm. As the creator, now you've obviously seen this with Suicide Squad. What is it like for you? Is there like that ownership feeling, a little bit of nerves as to what they're going to do with things that you have worked on or created, or are you just like, okay, this is not necessarily the same as my version, and I'm willing to see some of the changes they do, or are you all clinched up like, what are they going to do with my baby?
No, basically, I always take the attitude of it's a different medium, it's going to be adapted. Also, I take a look at it is that as Grimjack went on, I kept on adapting Grimjack to where we were as a people at the time. I mean, heck, I took John Gaunt out of the picture entirely and put in a whole new guy as Grimjack late in the series, just because it was time to shake things up a bit. And
and if you had done that in this day and age, the fan reaction on the internet would have been nuts.
No, they would have just been mad if it was a woman. That's all. That's all.
I know. I'm sure that. Actually, I got this once when Gaunt was still there. I think shortly before I did the change, but some guy wrote in and. No, John, I don't think it was you. Wrote in and said that I was obviously getting bored, and for the good of the character, I should step aside and let somebody else write the book. And I said, yeah, not in your lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think that was me.
Yeah, thanks for the unsolicited advice.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I stuck with Grimjack because. That was my guy. That was my book. I have a connection to that like I don't have, I think, really to any other book. I mean, I'm close to lots of other things that I've written, but nothing quite like Grimjack. And so it's like, I mean, I'm sure there are people today who would say, well, get him out of there, let's see what other people can do. Well, yeah, we may do that in terms of the TV series. And I'm okay with it because first of all, if it's a different medium, you've got to adapt to a different medium. Secondly, it's a different era. I mean, if I was, for instance, going to do a new incarnation of Grimjack at this point, which would not be impossible, I would be looking to reinvent it. The whole thing. Everyone. I mean, that's what happened when we went from John Gaunt to Twilly, was that I was sitting in the office of my editor over at first, and Rick Oliver, who was the chief editor at that point, came in and said, well, we got to do something about Grimjack. We really got to, shake things up. And I said, well, okay, we could do this, 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 and this. And he goes, no, that's not enough. I said, well, okay, we can do this, 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 and this. And he said, no, I don't think so. He finally said, okay, you want different? I'll give you different. we take them, we take them out of Gaunt, we put them in a new body, new form, 100 years down the timeline, new supporting cast, and we start over. And I waited for his jaw to drop, and he simply went, "Yeah, okay, we'll do that."
That's honestly, that's interesting. Because you got to assume that there's going to be more pushback on something along those lines, but they were willing to go ahead and do it. How long did that last with the new character?
For a while, a couple of years.
Wow.
So I can't give you the exact numbers because I don't remember them, but it was. I know it was after issue 50 because Grimjack was still there. Gaunt was still there with issue 50, but we had new artists. We had new supporting cast.
Oh, is that when was it Flint Henry did the art?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Flint was a madman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite the interesting guy. Yeah, he did some work, I think, at DC at one point.
Yeah. I had him come over. We basically took John Gaunt and adapted him into a Green Lantern.
That's right.
For a story.
What was that character? Jack Chance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that one?
You're a nerd.
Oh, come on.
Not you, John. This John. It's just, I'm just watching him as this stuff's rolling right off of his head.
You know this is a nerd.
Jack Chance. Yeah, no, Jack Chance. No, yeah. Honestly, I don't think I'm familiar.
Well, it was prior to the New 52, so I don't even know if the character exists.
Oh, no, I read back then, too. It's just Green Lanterns is one of those things I've always enjoyed, but, there's so many characters in the core that, it's just I might know him if I looked at him, but by name, I don't know.
He wore a trench coat.
He's a trench coat.
Yeah.
He's not the bird guy, right? Who's the bird guy?
No. He was blue-faced, though, I think, as I recall.
I think that's right. He had a blue skin tone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we talked about real quick when we were talking about the possibility of the Grimjack show. I brought up Star Wars real quick, and we talked about earlier that you had written Star Wars series for 10 plus years
for Dark Horse.
For Dark Horse, and my question about that is, your stuff is all part of the much not maligned but now gone EU that people that some fans are our old friend Vinny, who we used to do a podcast with. He had every book and every novel that was ever tied to the EU. As a creator who spent 10 years building characters, what was it like? I mean, were you angry or were you okay with it when they basically came out and said the Disney stuff is just that stuff is all jettisoned? It's not, it's still there to be enjoyed and people still enjoy it, but any ties it might have had or anything that you might have added to are gone.
I have an opinion about it, sure, but my basic feeling is I don't own Star Wars. I didn't own the characters, even the ones that I created. It wasn't mine. So they had and still have the right to do what they want, what they think is right for the franchise. Whether I agree or not. And I can understand sort of they're doing it. I mean, they were moving to a whole new publisher at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get weighed down with a lot of continuity, and believe me, even for someone who's working in it constantly, you were. I was sometimes neck high in continuity, and trying to keep my feet, and it's so I can see them going. Well, we want a new feel. We want it to feel new. We want it to be accessible to other people, and. So, okay, I can understand why they did it. I don't know if it's the best choice, but I can understand why they did it.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. It was from a creator's mouth. I'm just always curious how people feel about that.
Hey.
Now, you said, now you did mostly, am I correct, Knights of the Old Republic?
No, Knights of the Old Republic, I think, actually was another writer. That was actually another writer. I did... what did I do? I did the Star Wars leading up through the Clone Wars, or our version of the Clone Wars, and then after that we did Legacy, and after that we did Dawn of the Jedi, and and I also did Agent of the Empire, and a few other single issue one-offs.
Was there a Skywalker character that you created?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cade Skywalker, who was like supposedly Luke's grandson, I think is what we had him as, and he was sort of the anti-Skywalker. He was a drug addict. He didn't particularly want to be a hero. He certainly didn't want to be a Jedi, and in fact, early on, he didn't even go by the name of Skywalker. Eventually, his friends found out, and that almost led to a falling out between him and his closest friends. You know, the fact that he had Force ability and didn't show it.
Yeah. I want to say I picked that up. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, so a lot of the comic books passed me by. But I think I picked that up because you were on it, and I was curious. But it seemed like there's a lot of information when it comes to the Star Wars universe that if you don't know it, you're kind of lost.
Right.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, God knows the money I spent on information books, you know, on texts, references, encyclopedias and stuff. Although what was kind of funny at one point as well was, I mean, as much as I knew about Skywalker, first of all, Jan Dursma, my artist, knew 10 times more. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, in fact, our first character, I'm digressing here a little bit, so remind me to come back to my point a little bit later on.
Okay, we love that.
when we created our character, Quinlan Voss, we first came on because my buddy Tim Truman, who was writing it at the time, was going off to work on a special project. So they invited us in for a 4-issue story arc, and then featured Quinlan Voss. And our idea of him was, okay, he's a Jedi, but he has amnesia, so he has the powers but not the memory of being a Jedi. So this was right around the time that Phantom Menace came out. Okay, so Jan saw Phantom Menace, and she picked out a character from it to be Quinlan, so that Quinlan was actually in that story, although no one knew it. And the character, it's in a sort of cantina scene where Jar Jar is getting into trouble and stuff. The character she picked to play Quinlan was seated in the background at a table having dinner, and he's on for like maybe a second or two. And Jan, who can see a hummingbird's wings flap, caught him, took everything out that she needed, and designed him from that. So that's how good Jan is. Now, and that's a digression from, so Jan knows a lot about it. I knew a lot about it. Everything that we did had to go through Lucasfilm. I mean, at every stage, Lucasfilm licensing. And they had to approve everything from, like, the story idea to the plot, to the script, to the pencils, to the inks, to the colors, to the lettering. Yeah. You know, everything had to go through them. You know, and they would give us notes, and if they felt that something was wrong, and it would come back to us. The thing is, they would make a note. They'd say something to Jan and me and go, well, no, you can't really do that. And we said, well, yeah, but you already did that in this episode, and this happened here, and they did that, so this is just the same thing. And they think about it and they go, okay, because evidently we knew what we were talking about more than they did.
Yeah, you know more than the Lucasfilm people.
Which is scary.
Yeah.
Which is scary. I still know more Star Wars stuff than I should have any business retaining at this point in my life.
Well, I can imagine with the amount of, like, research, and it sounds like, in all honesty, as much as you maybe enjoyed doing that would probably be one of the harder books that you probably ever worked on, just for the fact that you've got to research everything. It's a licensed property, and then it's got to be approved. I mean, like, what is the time period like where are you setting multiple issues in at once?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, all the time in comic books, it's always staggered. You know, I mean, while Jan would be drawing one issue, I'd be plotting the next one, or even the one after that.
Right.
But actually, do you know it was more difficult than Star Wars?
Please tell me Suicide Squad.
I did X-Men over at Marvel.
Oh.
Not X-Men, but the singular X-Men.
Oh, Nate Gray.
Yeah, Nate Gray for a while. And that was far more difficult for me to do because they had their own little stuff. So I would write a plot, that I thought was pretty good. I would send it in, and then I'd get the word back, well, no, you can't do that because it's too close to what we're doing around at this point. So I said, well, okay, if you let me know what it was that was coming up, I could steer clear or play into it, whatever you wanted. And I was told, no, we can't do that. You don't have high enough clearance.
Oh. Yeah, you're not Omega level clearance at Marvel.
Yeah.
The elevator stops 2 floors below for you.
Yeah. Or shall we call it X level clearance?
Yes, X level.
Definitely not New Mutants level either.
Wow.
Yeah. So I eventually left the book because it was taking me 3 times as long to try to plot something because I was working blind and getting things rejected.
And if I didn't read that book, but if I remember correctly, that character, that was like an alternate dimension character. So right off the bat, or different time period or something.
Alternate dimension of Cable.
Cable, right.
Who was then from the Age of Apocalypse, and then he's brought over to the regular universe after the Age of Apocalypse, and is messing around there, and it just got really confusing for me. The person I think who actually did it best was Warren Ellis after I left. He managed to get in and just change things wholesale and make it really he sort of made him sort of like a mutant shaman. And I thought, boy, this is really interesting stuff. I wish I had either thought about it or was able to do something like that. But I was a little bit too confined.
Yeah, we did a podcast last week about X-Men book, and the word convoluted came up when it came to just like, because there's so many characters, and it's one of those things where it's not a book that for me has ever been easy to just jump on or read an arc of because there's so much going on.
And honestly, now I think about it, I don't think we even got into that particular subject where if you were a new reader jumping into this, which it was a self-contained story, you as a new reader would not know what's going on.
No, we talked about that a bit. There was a couple scenes that were like they expected you to know what was going on with characters and background and stuff, and it was not there.
No, it was a lot of information, and I don't know. I get lost with that kind of stuff, and I also give it the big old thumbs down. So.
All right, so Pioneer Comics, we're at the 7 o'clock hour, which means we're going to do our Chuck Woolery 2 and 2. Pay a couple of bills. You're listening to WESUFM.org. We have John Ostrander on with us tonight. And on the other side of the commercial break, I think we're going to talk about something that John...
Not commercials.
The other side of the advertisement. Is it advertisement? Or,
it's not even advertisement.
What is it? What do you call it again?
Public service
Public PSAs, I'm sorry. On the other side of the PSAs...
We are commercial-free radio.
We are. We're going to talk about... I think we're going to talk a little bit about Suicide Squad. So,
okay.
Shush.
Hello, my name is Eloise Tencher, and I host International Music Hour every first, third, and fifth Sunday of the month from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. I feature classic and contemporary world music as well as 60s, folk, country, and rock and roll. If you enjoy this kind of music, then this is a show for you, right here at WESU 88.1 FM, Middletown.
Credit card debt, mortgage debt, loan debt. It's overwhelming. Sleep debt is another serious form of personal debt, and it grows when you don't sleep well or long enough. Insufficient sleep can lead to poor health and reduced quality of life. Fortunately, sleep debt is easy to pay off by taking a few simple steps. For information that truck drivers and companies can use to prevent sleep debt, visit www.healthysleepfortruckers.org. A message from CDC.
We are the Hero Initiative. Hero Initiative is the charity that helps comic book creators in medical or financial need. Superhero movies are often billion-dollar blockbusters, but many of the writers and artists who developed the characters see little or no money from that. Hero Initiative helps many of these older creators with their medical and financial needs, And now you can be the hero too. Find out how you can donate and volunteer at heroinitiative.org.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Jack Sullivan. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm playing the greatest music from the 50s and the 60s every Monday night at 9:30 p.m. on WESU 88.1 FM. We've got a live call-in line at 860-685-7700, 860-685-7700. Take care, Jimmy, and yeah, I'll get you that $50 I owe you real soon, okay?
Hi, this is Nicolas Cage. When you're a teenager, there are a lot of things going on that can produce stress and anxiety. The pressures of school, dating, and the future in general can seem overwhelming sometimes. But there are healthy ways to deal with stress, ways to reduce it and channel your energy in positive directions. And you don't have to do it alone. The Will Rogers Institute has a free booklet with some really helpful information.
For your free copy, visit wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, it's Pint of Comics. We are back. If there's anything you learn in this hour, whether it be from Mr. Ostrander or John, myself, we hope that it's actually from Nicolas Cage. And if you have any kind of teenage depression issues, that you get out and do whatever he tells you to do.
Well, I didn't know anything about sleep debt until I was listening to you. So now I got to see if I can get a sleep debt bankruptcy deal going or something.
John, we here at Pint of Comics, we're very serious about a couple things, and one of them is sleep debt. Yeah, truckers' sleep debt, as a matter of fact. That's what the PSA is called, truckers' sleep debt.
Well, it was important to me.
Yeah, John was a trucker a few years ago, and I was very concerned that sleep debt was starting to affect him. So I wanted, and I didn't want to approach him naturally. So I figured I'd subliminally get it into his head.
There was some pretty long trips, and now the feds they overrule everything now. There's a lot of regulations.
There's regulations on that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty heady. Every big truck has a electronic logging device.
Yeah.
It's a federally.
You gotta take a break for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
All right, come back next hour for the for Trucker Talk. We'll be here. But for now, it's Pint of Comics, Sir Johnny Ganache, and our guest, the writer extraordinaire, John Ostrander. But John is saying that there's something that we have to talk about other than your writing, and I'm not aware of this. So John, what do we got?
So I was telling Ganache off the air, John, that you used to be an actor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Back. Way back when, in Chicago. I was a professional stage actor. Also, I wrote some plays and directed some plays, and I was the world's worst producer. I was like an oversized Mickey Rooney. I'd go, "Hey kids, let's put on a show," and except that I didn't have the success that Mickey Rooney's characters had. So that's just something I should have never kept on doing. But I'd lick my wounds and come back and go, "Oh, hey kids, let's put on another show." I was an actor. I studied improv theater at Second City.
Oh wow!
With Del Close, who was also my writing partner on Wasteland. And a lot of my acting, a lot of my directing, playwriting, it all fed into my ability to write comic books. A lot of things I knew just instinctively because of my work in theater. A lot of dialogue I learned how to do because I learned through theater, through being an actor, how dialogue carries the character forward, how you reveal something in it, how you don't reveal something in it. A big question always in the story is who reveals what to whom and when and why, and was it a good idea?
It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
It's good stuff, though.
That is good stuff. Second City, that's... Yeah. You could have been on SNL, right? That's where they pick people from.
But you worked with the incredible Del Close, and this guy has a...
Well, let me interject here real quick. A couple weeks ago, for Halloween time, I'm watching a ton of horror movies. I watched the remake of The Blob from '88, and the next day I'm just looking up stuff on IMDb because I've seen that movie several times and I enjoy it. And I'm like, who played the preacher, the crazy preacher, who the movie kind of ends on? And I recognize the name Del Close, but I don't know where I recognize the name. And then I actually read his whole Wikipedia thing and how he was this like this acting coach teacher, and super important to so many people. And it's so weird because in that movie, as an actor, I didn't recognize him so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was also in The Untouchables. In fact, he's the shyster lawyer who actually says to Kevin Costner, "So what are you, untouchable?"
Oh, okay. All right. I haven't seen that in a while. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, that's really cool.
He's got some interesting stories, and I Wasteland as a whole probably is one of the strangest publications DC has ever put out.
Yeah. Yeah, the editors used to come up to Mike Gold, our editor, and they would come up to him and say, "How did you get away with that?"
This was pre-Vertigo,
right?
And it was one of the suggested for mature readers titles at the time.
Oh yeah.
What? Yeah, really. What did it last? 20 issues? Not even?
No. About 18 issues, about a year and a half. And as Mike points out, at the time, we probably could have gone 2 years, but I was just running out of gas. Every issue had 3 stories in it, and none of them were connected to each other, and usually not to any other story that had appeared before, with the one exception of The Dead Detective, which I liked a lot.
So was this an anthology set in the same place, or just an anthology?
No, just all over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place. It was supposed to be a horror anthology. Mike called it a black hole comedy. It's a comedy that's so dark no laughs escape from it.
Did they ever collect this, or no?
I don't think so.
No,
they haven't collected it yet, which is too bad because it really was an interesting series, and some of them were very funny, and some of them were, our idea. See, a lot of horror stuff takes you through the horror, but then brings you out again on the other side.
It definitely felt more like a black comedy in many ways.
Yeah, with us, we'd take you deep into it, and then we'd leave you there.
It was unusual. I mean, for me, I got to go back and read it because I've been thinking about this series quite a bit lately. It's just at the time I was so young, I don't think a lot of the stories
latched on, right?
It probably, I think they were over my head.
Yeah.
But now, a little bit different now. Yeah.
Now they're definitely probably in your wheelhouse.
And I'm thinking, man, if this ever was published now, it would probably be a big hit. I think it was way ahead of its time.
Right.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And that's why I think it would be good, to re-release it in 1 or 2 volumes.
Sure. I would say so.
I'd check it out for sure.
I think the guys at DC right now would probably be scared of it, but
yeah.
But it's good stuff.
Keep your opinions of current DC to yourself.
Yeah.
We don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I mean, John, do you still write for DC or?
I haven't in a while.
Okay.
There's no reason why I wouldn't. I don't have anything to say. No, I'll never work for them again. No, if they're interested in having me do something and we can work it out, yeah, then sure, I'd love to do something again. But you bring up the interesting thing about could something that I did back then, could I do it today? And this will actually segue right into the Suicide Squad, because the first issue of the Squad in its own book starts off with superpowered terrorists doing an attack on an airport where Air Force One is supposed to land. And I was looking at that again recently. I was going, good God, I don't think they would let me do that today.
Yeah, believe it or not, we just covered that for one of our podcast episodes.
We just did it like 3 weeks ago. We haven't put it out yet, and we talked about how that scene probably would not fly today.
Yeah.
But it's like we covered the first 8 issues of the 87 series, and we had such a good time with it. But that one bit, we were like, I don't know if they would let that go through today.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's because I looked at it and went, oh my God.
There's a lot of things in there that not just that one volume, but the whole entire run. They were pretty risky then, and not just some of the things that you cover, but the political situations and there's a lot. It's a heady book. I love that. I'm gushing now.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's just,
we knew
the
that was
Suicide
gonna
Squad
happen.
and me. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and it's just one of those titles that I love from the very beginning to the very end.
I had a friend of mine who, at one point during the run, called me up and asked me where I was going to be setting the squad the following summer, because for a while we were oddly in sync. I would look at the world, see and read things, and go, "No, okay, that may be a hot spot." So I would write something about that. And sure enough, right around the time the book came out, all of a sudden, yeah, that would be kind of a tense place. So she called me up and said, "So where are you setting it next summer? Because I'm trying to figure out where I'm going on my vacation, and I don't want to go anywhere that you're writing about."
Wasn't that something they used to do at the Daily Show? The don't go there.
Yeah.
That was good stuff. But the Squad.
Not going to vacation in Jotunheim.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
For a series of that nature, I mean, I was there at the very beginning. I was there at the very end. I remember after it was canceled, and it was the late lamented Suicide Squad. It was one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. And then the slow, eventual buildup of the fan outcry and outpouring of support for the book well after it had finished.
Right.
It was kind of this weird thing. I'm like, where were you then?
It's like all the guys you see wearing Hartford Whalers hats now.
Well.
Where were you 20 years ago? But
it's nice to see that the book had such an impact on so many people that we eventually got a movie. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you liked it is unimportant. The movie did really, really well.
Yeah, did well enough to do another movie.
Yeah, right. and it won an Academy Award.
Right,
so.
and let's not forget too, even before the movie came out, that in the last I would say 7, ever since the New 52, Suicide Squad has been an ongoing thing. Whether or not they reboot it every once in a while, it has never been not published at DC. So, I mean, obviously there are people out there that are enjoying this.
Yeah. There's just the Dirty Dozen style rebuild of the book itself from your redevelopment of it. It just suited the DC universe as a whole very, very well.
Yeah, I wanted to
ask.
Well,
the Dirty Dozen very much was integral into the whole creation of it in the first place. When I was, back around that time, I was just starting to work at DC, and Bob Greenberg, who was going to be the editor, was, he was an editor, and he and I were trying to work out something that I was going to do, and I told him that what I really wanted was Challengers of the Unknown, because, boy, that's just one of the greatest titles in all the comics, Challengers of the Unknown. I mean, that's just so evocative.
Yeah.
But somebody else had dibs on it, and so it wasn't available to me. So Bob then says, well, look, we have this other title that it only ran for about 5 issues in Showcase, and no one's doing anything with it. And you could do anything you wanted with it. I said, okay, what is it? And he said, well, it's called Suicide Squad. And my reaction was, what a stupid name. Who in their right minds would belong to anything that called itself Suicide Squad? But then I went off and thought about it, and I said, well, okay, who would? And then I said, well, people who didn't have any other choice. Who doesn't have any other choice? Prisoners maybe don't have any other choice. Ooh, this could be interesting. And then I thought, ooh, yeah, and then add in Mission Impossible, Dirty Dozen, put them on missions, secret missions for the government, for which they get time knocked off. Of course, they also have a device in them that could also knock off parts of their body. So, and the idea of playing around with the villains, one of my favorite books for its short run was Secret Society of Supervillains. Oh, yeah. And it's just fun to play with the bad guys because they are bad guys. The heroes are heroic, that's great, but the bad guys, well, they act out, sort of the dark sides of their own personalities. And so I got very much into that, and they liked it. They liked it a lot. And what also came out of it, also I think, which is also very important, was Amanda Waller.
Yes. Yeah. My favorite character of all time.
Well, yeah, there was no one like her.
No.
before her, and I don't think there's really been anyone like her since then. I very deliberately, I wanted someone who was not superpowered to be in charge. I wanted someone who was African American. I wanted it to be female. I wanted it not to be of the standard, feminine body type that you get at DC, and I just wanted her just to be kick-ass, and we got all of that.
Yeah.
Issue 10.
Yeah, my favorite.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That cover?
Yeah.
The cover and the issue. I honestly, I read the first 8 for the. I own the whole thing. I picked them up at shows. I had never read the whole thing, so I'm currently.
I was pushing it.
He's pushing me, and I'm currently
years.
going through it. So I read the first 8, and I've gotten up through 10, and I pulled out like the next 10 to go through. That is one of the best single issue stories, and it's also the thing with Batman is I love Batman.
We should describe to the listeners that this cover on issue 10 of Suicide Squad is Amanda Waller basically backing Batman up against the wall,
with
her
finger
right out at him. It's
right in his chest.
Oh, it's a beautiful image from Jerry Bingham, and it is one of the best cover images of all time.
It is, and it's a great moment in the comic because the thing about Batman is I love Batman, but whether you love him or not, Batman tends to be right all the time, or he tends to be 2 steps ahead of everybody. And in this issue, basically he comes down and to bumper sticker it, tells Amanda Waller, "You're going to shut this down. It's no good. We're not doing this." And as it ends, she essentially tells him that I'm going to figure out who you are, and I'm going to tell everybody unless you leave us alone. And he kind of cowers out and whimpers out, and it's like this. So Batman. He fights the Joker. He fights Darkseid. He fought all these characters, and the one that gets one over on him is this non-superpowered woman. And it's so powerful
with some brass balls.
That cover, I think, is really definitive. In terms of defining Amanda.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
you definitely lucked out on some great cover images for that series.
The first issue is iconic.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It's just, and it's not just iconic for comics, but it's like it's a movie poster.
Plus the logo, you got the Todd. That was a Todd Klein design logo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get that great logo.
Yeah.
Everything just seemed to come together really, really well with that book.
Yeah, and Howard Chaykin did the art.
Right.
On that one.
Was there ever in your 66 issues before the book got canceled? Was there ever a character you wanted to include that DC gave you the no on?
No, because I tended to avoid the ones that was that I knew they would say no on. For instance, I didn't want the Joker because I wouldn't be able to do with him what I wanted. I wanted this the B and C level characters because what I wanted was to be able to take them, do what I wanted with them, kill them off if I felt like it. Let's take a look at one of the best characters in it, one of the most iconic characters, which is Deadshot.
Yeah.
And all he was a suit in the Who's Who of the time, he had like maybe a quarter page.
Yeah, he didn't
maybe
get a
half page.
Yeah, he didn't get a full page for that.
But I liked the look of the suit. I liked a couple of things that I read about him, and so I just took, and I was able to do whatever I wanted with him, create this whole background with him, and
he got his own miniseries out of it.
Yeah,
got his own miniseries. He's become
he's an icon.
He's an iconic character that one of the world's biggest movie stars wanted to play.
Right.
What I mean? Like that's insane. Yeah,
it's a big deal. And I have to say this too. The animated Justice League series really did a great job of adapting. Of adapting to Suicide Squad and Amanda Waller. CCH Pounder was just born to play that role. Wow. I watched that when I watched that for the first time. I could only imagine as a writer and a creator of the character how you must have felt just seeing her develop like that. It must have been something incredible for you.
Yeah. It's like when they capture your character and put them up there, and you go, okay, they got it.
Yeah.
They understood it, and it's like your character is going out and just going walkabout. In fact, one of the things is I got one of these cardboard stand-up from movies of Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. I mean, like life size. And she's in my office, standing at the end of my desk, looking at me, and in my head I can hear the voice going, "Get back to work."
Well, I mean, as I guess because we kind of talked about it a little bit there too. Just as someone that you said before earlier that you're willing to kind of divorce yourself from it and see it from a different set of eyes, did you enjoy the movie?
Yes, I did. Are there problems with it? Sure. Sure, and I could listen, but I won't. I have my own copy of the DVD, and generally when it shows up on TV, if I'm zooming around, I come across, I'll stop and watch it again.
Yeah.
There's a couple movies like that I go that aside from the stuff that I've written, but like The Legend of Tarzan, I didn't anticipate liking that at all, and I look at it every time it comes up again.
Is that the last live action one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it with Skarsgård.
Yeah, that was actually.
I hear it's good. I haven't seen it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I get beat up for liking the Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie. I really like that movie. And
well, as my sweetie Mary, and if she hears me talking about it, she'll come in and beat on my monkey skull. But if you want bad movies, I got 2 of them that I can recommend to you.
Yeah?
God, I'm gonna like both of them.
Yep.
Every time someone says this, I like them. Go ahead.
Okay, let's start with The Return of Captain Invincible.
Oh, geez, no.
It's a superhero movie made in Australia. Alan Arkin is Captain Invincible.
oh boy.
Oh.
Alan Arkin in tights.
Oh. Okay.
And he's also a drunk, and his opponent is Mr. Midnight, played by the inimitable Christopher Lee.
Now I have to see this.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you haven't.
Oh, and there are songs.
Oh. The Return of Captain Invincible?
The Return of Captain Invincible.
Okay. All right.
And Christopher Lee sings one of them.
Oh boy.
And it's either in the extra features or somewhere else that Christopher Lee said that if he couldn't be an actor, he'd like to be an opera singer. And Christopher, don't give up your day job.
Didn't he win a Grammy for like a metal album?
I think didn't he something?
The one who did the metal album, and I hate to say that I have this, is Pat Boone.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
And every bit as
I've
awful
heard
as you
of
can
it.
possibly think.
Never heard it.
It's not that I've listened to all of it. I just had to own it.
I have to look here. There's probably a copy of that here somewhere.
What is the second movie that you would recommend?
Oh, and this is worse than the first one. This is Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter.
I've heard of that. I've never seen that.
Oh, well, put it on the top of your must-miss list.
Okay, a former coworker of mine used to talk about how bad that was.
Oh, it is. And blasphemy is the least of its sins.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I have heard of that one.
Yeah, it's set in modern day, and when we first encounter Jesus, he's baptizing people, and he has the beard, although the beard gets shaved off at some point early on, and he's up against vampires in it, and he's up. Some of them are lesbian vampires.
Oh,
Of course.
And because he's having trouble dealing with them, at one point, a masked Mexican wrestler comes in to help him.
Oh, a luchador, of course.
Yeah.
Again, luchadors, lesbian vampires. This is what you expect in a Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter
sounds like
movie.
a Hellboy
Oh,
story.
and there is one song.
Of course.
Does Christopher Lee come in and sing that too, or no?
No. The guy I blocked his name probably because I need to. The guy who wrote it, directed, and stars in it also sings the main song.
Oh boy.
And it sort of ends with a sort of Sermon on the Mount sort of thing that Jesus addresses to, and you can tell that all the people in the crowd scene are probably the people who invested in the movie with the promise of being put in the movie. So they're the people.
Kickstarter backers.
Yeah.
Blessed are the cheesemakers.
Yeah, really.
So as of right now, that is probably the worst movie I know.
So see, John, King Arthur isn't so bad.
Well, it's no Speed 2.
Yeah, well,
Had to get that in there.
You often do.
John, what are you working on now that the listeners can go out and find?
Well, I have Cross, who is a vampire hunter, KROS, Hallowed Ground with Tom Mandrake, who did Spectre with me.
Wow.
That is we did it as a, what's the name of the fundraising thing, that you raise funds for it and stuff. We did that. It's out there. And there's some place where you can find it. Indiegogo, I think.
Indiegogo.
And also, I'm with Jan Dursma, who did the Star Wars stuff with me. We're doing a space opera thing of our own called Hexer Dusk. And we're just in the process of completing that and trying to get it off to the publisher. So that should be available hopefully around the first of the year.
Oh,
maybe
cool.
maybe a little sooner.
Very cool.
And where can people find you? Social media, any of that stuff? Do you have
Facebook probably is the easiest way to find me.
Okay.
I got a bunch of followers there, and I tend to post a lot of memes and puns and stuff like that.
He's very punny.
I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but I'll send you a link when we put out the Suicide Squad episode.
Yeah.
Oh, do please.
If you're interested, we really loved it. 4 of us read it. 3 of us had never read it before. John had read it, obviously, and we all really dug it a lot. So
silly me reads it a lot. That's one of those books I go back and reread. I still think I look at it this way. I look at the Suicide Squad this way. There's 2 specific volumes, and it usually goes with the editor. So like when Bob Greenberger left the book, it kind of took a different shift in the design of it. So the way that they operated was very, very different.
Right.
And Jeff Isherwood, who took over the art, who was a personal favorite of mine, really did a great job on that book. So I loved where it went after that. And
we had several actually very good artists on from Luke McConnell, who started with it. John K. Snyder the third did a bunch of really good issues, and Jeff, of course. So, and there were others, who don't come to mind right now. Sorry, guys. But, I'm just, just one of the, some of the episodes or issues that I liked most were the Private Files ones.
Yeah.
They were, and they were just self-contained issues, and we'd look in on the different characters and storylines that were going on with them. One of my favorite continuing storylines was the infamous Cream Pie in the Face series.
I haven't gotten there yet.
You haven't gotten there yet?
No.
I think it starts up right like before the first.
I've only gotten a couple past where we were, so I'm still moving. Speaking of moving, we got to get moving. Pine and Comics is at an end. John, thank you so much for coming on quick too, for getting on.
Again, John, I mean, we filled this hour up pretty quick. We didn't even get into some of the other titles that you worked on, like Spectre, which was another personal favorite of mine, and we're gonna have to have you back at some point.
Really, part 2.
Yeah. All right.
This was great. Thanks again for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. This was fun.
That's what we aim to be.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
That was awesome. Thank you, John.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was John Ostrander on Pine and Comics. Coming up next, the world's greatest and longest-running live Grateful Dead show, Dead Air, with Uncle John. He is in the other room. I can't see him, though. Is he watching us?
I think so.
Is he watching us? Okay.
My voice is shattered
little
after
creepy.
yesterday.
Next week is
Steve Roth.
Steve Roth from Quarto, who are an awesome publishing company that if you've seen some of the videos we've done where we review the DC 100 Greatest Moments by Bob Greenberger and a few other of their books, the Hot Wheels book, those folks. So we're going to talk to them, and we should be getting some books from them for holiday season. We're going to talk about soon too.
We'll play the song that Steve's involved with too, that he got the gold disc for.
Oh, there we go. All right, it's Pine and Comics. We're out.
See ya.